Poppy Playtime Chapter 3 got some massive official updates from the developers about the gameplay of the chapter, the lore, an update on the release date, an announcement for a console version, and even one confirmed returning character. So, if you didn't know, over the past couple weeks, the Poppy Playtime developers have done a bunch of different interviews and answered a lot of questions about the upcoming chapter. Starting first with a Screen Rant interview titled, "The Biggest Chapter to Date, Poppy Playtime Developers on Chapter 3 Deep Sleep." And here they answered a ton of questions about Chapter 3, first being asked, from what we've seen so far, it seems like Chapter 3 Deep Sleep is largely set in the Playcare orphanage. What can fans expect from this environment? To which developer Zach would respond, "This is going to be the biggest chapter to date in the Poppy Playtime universe by far. Players can expect more challenges and mini-games, more characters that can either help or hinder their progress, and more scary moments that define the Poppy universe." And developer Seth added, "We'll also be pushing the story forward. There are some unsolved questions from chapters 1 and 2 that we address, plus there will be a few new questions popping up. So Chapter 3 Deep Sleep serves as a pivotal point in the overall direction of the story." So pretty much as we expected, there's going to be a lot more characters and gameplay stuff that'll be in Chapter 3 that I'm sure is going to be insane, especially since they specifically said there are some unresolved questions from chapters 1 and 2 that we address. And while with Chapter 2, I'm assuming they're talking about mysteries like what happened to the prototype and Kissy Missy, but the one mystery I could think of in Chapter 1 that we haven't quite solved yet is what happened to Huggy at the end of the chapter when falling down the catwalks and presumably dying. So possibly this could be hinting at Chapter 3 finally answering that question, but I guess we'll see. I also found it super interesting that they said that there were going to be characters that were going to help us in the factory. Maybe this could mean something like Poppy coming back and guiding us through the factory again, or as we've theorized before, a lot of the new characters coming in the chapter of the smiling critters are also labeled as being very friendly, so maybe they'll be helping us as well. The next question the interviewers asked was, "Can you reveal any of the new monsters players will contend with in Chapter 3? Probably being asked before they revealed the smiling critters officially. With Seth responding, "While we can't reveal anything specific that would spoil the surprise of the story, players will come across characters that are both fan favorites and new additions. They all come together to twist the story in a new direction. All I can say about the new characters is that some people are going to laugh, some people are going to scream, and some people are going to cry." So once again, they admit that there will be new fan favorite characters from the previous chapters coming into the game, which leaves a lot to be theorized about. And I also found it weird that they said that some people are going to cry, possibly hinting at there being more emotional or story-driven moments in the game as well, which I would love to see if true. Next, the interviewers asked, "What do you think will surprise characters most about Deep Sleep?" With Seth saying, "Deep Sleep is the largest chapter of the anthology. Players will instantly notice how our visual look and style in the Poppy universe keeps evolving. All of the environments are bigger, more polished, and more cinematic. We are continuing to perfect our craft, and I believe that it'll show in the final product." Which doesn't really say much, but it seems like improving the environments of the game and the chapter is a big focus for the devs, which is good since, in my opinion, Chapter 2 especially struggled a lot with building an environment or really being scary. But speaking of which, they then asked about the horror of the game, saying, "How scary would you say Deep Sleep is compared to previous chapters? The teasers have made it look very dark." Which Seth responded saying, "All I could say is that there are definitely going to be some twists that will evoke an emotional response from the players. But the exciting thing is that the emotional response may be different for each player. Some may laugh, some may be frightened, some may cry. Who knows, but that's the fun part of the story." So once again, they bring up there being a lot more emotion in the game, which is super odd and makes me wonder what could make this game super emotional. Maybe a character will die, or maybe they're referencing the children and how they went missing, which could be considered emotional. I'm not exactly sure. But then finally, the last question on this interview reads, "Other than Deep Sleep, is there anything else Mob Entertainment has in the pipeline that you can share?" Where Dev Zach answered, "Bringing Poppy Playtime to console has always been a part of our vision, which we're working hard to make a reality sometime this year." Which means that there are apparently plans to bring the game somehow into consoles within the year, as insane as it sounds. And they even go deeper in a separate article about the console, saying, "We are happy to say that we have been actively developing Chapter 1 to appear on your favorite console. We expect to submit our final build revealed any day now, so we plan on having Chapter 1 on your favorite console by the end of the year, talking presumably about Xbox, PlayStation, and also Switch. However, while this was all that they said in the Screen Rant interview, the devs were also interviewed on gaming.net, where they were first asked, tell us about the upcoming chapter Deep Sleep. What can we expect from this next episode in the series? And dev Zach responded, Chapter 3 is going to be the biggest chapter in the series to date. We have many surprises in store for players, including more types of puzzles, new characters who will either help you or try to squander your progress, and more jump scares, which have been a mainstay and ultimately define the Poppy universe. And dev Seth added, Chapter 1 and 2 left on cliffhangers, and fans have been anxiously waiting for answers. There are tons of theories out on the internet. Chapter 3 will certainly address the cliffhangers of Chapter 1 and 2, but will also bring out some new questions while adding layers to the story. So they essentially say the same things they said in the last interview, but I did find it interesting that they said Chapter 3 will address the cliffhangers of Chapter 1 and 2, with Chapter 1's cliffhanger once again being about what happened to Huggy whenever he died, and the Chapter 2 cliffhanger being why did the Poppy doll turn on us at the end. So based on this, we are presumably going to get answers to both. Next, they asked, so what's next for Poppy Playtime? Are we likely to see a 4th chapter at any point in the future? A 5th, perhaps? Answered by Seth saying, we are always thinking several steps ahead about where we could take the story next. We don't want to deviate from the overarching lore we established with Chapter 1, so we're constantly working to build upon it. I know this story is far from over, and there are entire sections of the Playtime Co factory that we haven't even unlocked yet. So this is essentially confirming that there's going to be more in the pipeline for games in future chapters. And in fact, Zach even posted an Instagram story recently showing him in a Zoom meeting literally titled Chapter 4. So they are most likely already planning the next chapter in the franchise as we speak, which I'm already looking forward to. And also, when they say that there are areas of the factory that we haven't even unlocked yet, that makes me wonder if they could be referencing places like the innovation room, which in the lore, if you didn't know, is extremely important because that's where they were making all of these big toy creatures, and maybe we could explore that in the later chapters. Now, both of these interviews are super interesting. However, debatedly, the most important part of them is that in some reposts of the interviews, they claimed that the game was supposedly releasing in December. And the devs even reposted these articles on their LinkedIn page. So did they just leak Chapter 3's release date? Well, the devs actually came out and confirmed that this was the official press release confirmation that the chapter is coming out at some point in December officially. Now, this shouldn't be a crazy shock to you guys because November is already halfway over, but there were some rumors and leaks last month that alleged the game was going to release in November, so it's nice to get this confirmation anyway. However, that might not be the biggest reveal of the day, because out of nowhere, the developers also told us a few more things on their Discord server about the chapter as well. For instance, somebody mentioned there possibly being blood and darker themes in the chapter, where they told us there definitely would be, playing into the idea that this is going to be a more mature chapter. And furthermore, out of nowhere, one of the devs sent us a message telling us that Kissy fans were going to enjoy Chapter 3. Or in other words, one of the returning characters in Chapter 3 is apparently going to be none other than Kissy Missy, which makes a lot of sense since they teased her coming back in Chapter 2, so it'd be odd if she just didn't show up again. But this is probably one of the biggest reveals if true, and it also brings up a lot of questions about Chapter 3, since in Kissy Missy's Chapter 3 tape released earlier this year, she was actually brought into the play care before something mysterious, possibly catnap, killed the employees trying to transport her into the area, suggesting she was working in the play care for some period of time, which if true is a massive detail people shouldn't be forgetting about, especially since as far as we know she's the only bigger body to be friendly with us. But speaking overall, the devs have been dropping Chapter 3 updates pretty much every single day, so make sure you're subscribed to not miss any of those.